Magazine, how conspiracy theories are shaping the 2020 election. When was this? Dun dun dun. Should be, what did it say? It should be 2020. Oh, fuck you. What's September 10th, 2020? What is Kino, friggin' New York Times, Time Election Cabal. I just saw the damn thing. Time Cabal. Boom, boom, boom. The secret bipartisan campaign that saved the 2020 election. Well, if it saved the election, then why did it have to be a secret? And why is it only coming out now? Right? Weird thing happened right after the November 3rd election. Nothing. The nation was braced for chaos. Excuse me. Local groups have vowed to take to the streets, planning hundreds of protests across the country. Right-wing militias were girding for battle. In the poll for before Election Day, 75% of Americans voted concerned about violence. Instead, an eerie quiet descended as President Trump refused to concede. The response was not mass action, but crickets. When media organizations called the race for Joe Biden on November 7th, jubilation broke out instead as people throned, is that what it is? Throned or thronged cities across the United States to celebrate the democratic process that resulted in Trump's ouster. Oh, okay. So, damn, that's a fucking gorgeous house right there. Friggin', that's like a multi-million-dollar property. Well, over $1 million. A second odd thing happened amid Trump's attempts to reverse the result. Corporate America turned on him. Hundreds of major business leaders, many of whom had backed Trump's candidacy and supported his policies, called on him to concede to the president. Something fell amiss. It was all very strange. Very strange. Trump said on December 2nd, within days after the election, we witnessed an orchestrated effort to anoint the winner, even while many key states were still being counted. Wow. So, hundreds of business leaders who back Trump. That's because they're cowards and they're doing, and they're in between and they just want to be on one side. Like some people will follow the winners, and that's where you gotta just that's where trends are made, right? And the trend was Trump needed to be gone. In a way, Trump was right. There was a conspiracy unfolding behind the scenes, one that both curtailed the protests and coordinated the resistance from CEOs. Both surprises were the result of an informal alliance between left-wing activists and business titans. Isn't that called fascism? The pact was formalized in a terse, uh, little notice joint statement of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and AFL-CIO published on Election Day. No, we noticed. You just didn't pick it up. You just weren't, you weren't that clever. You just freaking blocked out a majority of the audience, and now you're shadow banning us. Both sides would come to see it as a sort of implicit bargain, inspired by the summer's massive, sometimes destructive racial justice protest, in which the forces of labor came together with the forces of capital to keep the peace and oppose Trump's assault on democracy. No matter what Trump was doing, that wasn't. So basically, this is saying that everyone that freaking protested wasn't like in these things, even if you're a Trump supporter, you're feeding them. You're feeding them, and that's what January 6th was. Is like that's what do we remember about freaking Trump's thing? Well, it just ended up in an insurrection. Anyways, the handshake between business and labor was just one component of a vast cross-partisan campaign to protect the election, an extraordinary shadow effort dedicated not to winning the vote, but ensuring it would be free and fair. Not to win in the vote, but to ensuring it would be free and fair. See, that's what I'm talking about with witchcraft, is that they tell us what they're doing to us. They tell us what they're going to do before they actually do it, and they're going to tell us afterwards what they're going to do, what they did. And we see the silence on this. Imagine if this was Trump. This was for Trump, right? Just imagine. Anyways, cross-partisan campaign to protect the election, an extraordinary shadow effort dedicated not to winning the vote, but to ensuring it would be free and fair, credible, and uncorrupted. For more than a year, a loosely organized coalition of operatives scrambled to shore up America's institutions. Ooh, oh my God. Sorry, this is my first time reading it, and so I'm giving him like freaking reaction to this shit. And I'm just like, institutionalized. And never let one's learning get in the way of one's education. All right? Don't let your education get in the way of your learning. Cool? I promise you, like that's not bad advice. And sorry, I'm drinking beer, smoking a cigarette, because shit, y'all should be too, because this shit. Oh my God. All right. For more than a year, a loosely organized coalition of operatives scrambled to shore up America's institutions as they came under simultaneous attack from a relentless pandemic and an autocratical inclined president. Oh, excuse me. Excuse me. Let me try again. For more than a year, a loosely organized coalition of operatives scrambled to shore up America's institutions as they came under simultaneous attack from a remorseful pandemic and an autocratically inclined president. Though much of this activity took place on the left, it was separate from the Biden campaign and crossed ideological lines. The crucial contributions by nonpartisan and conservative actors. The scenario the shadow campaigners were desperate to stop was not a Trump victory. It was an election so calamitous that no result could be discerned at all. A failure of the central act of democratic self-governance that has been a hallmark of America since its founding. Hold on a second. And I'm sorry. So I'm doing a reaction to this, and shadow campaigners are desperate to. So basically, look, if Biden doesn't win, you're gonna lose your businesses. We're just gonna burn everything down. We're gonna destroy everything. So, yeah, you vote for Trump or that. We're just gonna have some calamitous activities take place. Their work touched every aspect of the election. They got states to change voting systems and laws and help secure hundreds of millions in public and private funding. They fended off voter suppression lawsuits, recruited armies of poll workers, and got millions of people to vote by mail for the first time. They successfully pressured social media companies to take a harder line against disinformation and use data-driven strategies to fight viral smears. They executed national public awareness campaigns that helped Americans understand how the vote count would unfold over days or weeks, preventing Trump's conspiracy theories and false claims of victory from getting more traction. After Election Day, they monitored every pressure point to ensure that Trump could not overturn the result. The untold story of the election is that thousands of people of both parties who accomplished the triumph of American democracy at this very foundation, says Norm Eason, a prominent lawyer and former Obama administration official who would credit Republicans and Democrats to the board of the voter protection program. So basically, it's not to protect us, it's to protect them. As above, so below. Like, they speak in reverse, all right? Like when you're talking to these people, you got to have a fast mind in order to deal with these people. All right. And yeah, by the way, Norton, you're not really doing a good job with your freaking ad blocking, are you? Being that I've been looking for a house and all that shit, you're not really doing a really good job, are you? Fuck you. Well, I'll cancel my membership here soon. After this. For Trump and his allies were running their own campaign to spoil the election. The president spent months insisting the mail ballots were a Democratic plot and the election would be rigged. His henchmen at the state level sought to block their use, while his lawyers brought dozens of spurious suits to make it more difficult to vote. An intensification of GOP's legacy of suppression tactics. Anyways, before the election, Trump plotted to block a legitimate vote count, and he spent the months following November 3rd trying to steal the election he'd lost with lawsuits and conspiracy theories, pressure on state and local officials, and finally summoning his army of supporters to the January 6th rally that ended up in a deadly violence at the Capitol. So you see it like this, right here. This is the spell. This is the spell right here. All right, because it's like, okay, it just kind of leads you in, and then freaking for Trump and his allies were running their own campaign to spoil, and it's like they make it seem like an attack on us, and so oh my god, and so that triggers an emotional response, and it provides the psychic energy for them. It sounds fucking fucked up, but I'm telling you, you don't have to believe me. I'm just letting you know. The democracy campaigners watched with alarm every week. We felt like we were in a struggle to try and pull off this election without the country going through a real dangerous moment of unraveling, says former GOP Representative Zach Wamp, a Trump supporter who helped coordinate a bipartisan election protection council. We can look, yeah, right. No, he's a fucking traitor, is what he is. That's why he's, we got a GOP guy. Like, he's freaking a traitor. We look back and say, this thing went pretty well, but it was not at all clear in September and October that was going to be the case. I'm telling you, like, people need to fucking look at this shit. And I'll fucking I will include a link in this description. I'm not really good at that. And that's because I'm working on my phone and I'm freaking, Anyways. This is the inside story of a conspiracy that saved the 2020 election based on the access to the group's inner workings, never before seen documents, and interviews with dozens of those who evolved from across the political spectrum. It is a story of an unprecedented, creative, and determined campaign whose success also reveals how close the nation came to disaster. Every attempt to interfere with the proper outcome of the election was defeated. Every attempt to interfere with the proper outcome. Basically, Trump couldn't be beat because the people were behind him, says Ian Bassan, co-founder of Attack Democracy, Protect Dictatorship, a nonpartisan rule of law advocacy group. But it's massively important for the country to understand that it didn't happen accidentally. The system didn't work magically. Yes, it did. I mean, I'm telling you, they have to tell us what they're fucking doing to us, fuckers. Democracy is now self-executed. Hold on a second. I need a moment. Sorry. How long is this thing? Oh my god. Alright, so I'm going to tell you right now. I'm going to go through all of this. If you want to listen to me, you can go right the fuck ahead and listen to me break this down the way I see it. And Yeah. If not, the link's going to be below. Um, this is a long article, and I'm actually well. And the thing is that like usually you got to pay for these things, huh? I think, but I didn't have to do that. So I think and that's the thing is they want us to see this. So yeah. How long is this already? It's like, oh my god. Okay, this is gonna be a long video. That's why the participants want the secret history of the 2020 election told. That's because they have to tell us what they did to us. That's why I have to, because they were telling us what they were going to do to us before they actually did it. And now they have to freaking establish, put out that spell. Even though it sounds like a paranoid fever dream, a well-funded cabal of powerful people ranging across industries and ideologies working together behind the scenes to influence perceptions, change rules and laws, steer media coverage, and control the flow of information. They were not rigging the election. They were fortifying it. And they believe the public needs to understand the system's fragility in order to ensure that democracy in America endures. Fragility. No, it's saying, hey, this is the power we have. All right? This is the power we have. And we used it. All right? That's what they're saying. Like, they're just trying to be like, oh, well, we're trying to cater to you. And that's playing on your freaking emotions, and that's how they get you. All right? Just like a fucking narcissist. Like freaking, you want to leave someone and whatever, but you have all the reasons, but then you speak to them, and then you fall victim to their ways because they're freaking cunning linguist. Not cunning linguist. Oh, it's good to see you, cunning linguist. Cunning linguist. Cunning linguist. The architect. The god. The thing of Freemasons, huh? Like, that's a fucking key fucking word right there. Like I said, this is the first time I'm going through this, or else I'd be a little bit more like. Anyways, sometime in fall of 2019, Mike Bondhorser became convinced the election was headed for disaster and determined to protect it. So that's the target. This was not his usual purview. Pure view. Like purity. This is not his usual purity view. Visual assessment. This is not, his typical morals. For nearly a quarter of a century, Fucker, senior advisor to the president of the AFL-CIO, the nation's largest union federation, has marshaled the latest tactics and data to help its favorite candidates win elections. Unassuming and professional, he isn't the sort of hair-gelled political strategist who shows up on cable news. Among Democrats and Democratic insider, he's known as the wizard behind some of the biggest advances in political technology in recent decades. A group of liberal strategists he brought together in the early 2000s led to the creation of the Analyst Institute, a secretive firm that applies scientific methods to political campaigns. Okay, so I thought there was, I always wanted to be a political scientist, but then I just it was like, well, fuck it, just go into social engineering. He was also involved in the founding of the Catalyst and the flagship progressive data company. Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, WhatsApp, TikTok, data. I made you out of clay. Data. And data thou shalt play, or some shit like, I don't fucking know. The landless chatter in Washington about political strategy, Fucker believes, has little to do with how change really gets made. My basic take on politics is that it's pretty obvious if you don't overthink it or swallow the prevailing frameworks whole, he once wrote. After that, just relentlessly identify your assumptions and challenge them. Fucker applies the approach to everything. When he coached his now adult son's Little League team in DC suburbs, he trained the boys not to swing at most pitches, a tactic that infuriated both their and their opponents' parents, but won the team's series of championships. And like that's I mean, I have to, agree with him on that strategy though, because that's pretty much what I do. That's why I infuriate people. That's why I keep on getting attacked, with these outrageous claims that I'm a terrorist, because everyone keeps on saying I'll do it, but I never will. And so it's like they're trying to do that shit with me, but it doesn't work, and it kills them. Trump's election in 2016 credited in part to his unusual strength among sort of blue-collar white voters who once dominated the AFL-CIO, prompted Fucker to question his assumptions about voter behavior. He began circulating weekly number crunching memos to a small circle of allies and hosting strategy sessions in D.C. Also, freaking, that's the damn thing is like, we had Q, right? We had Q. They put it out there, Q put it out there, right? They had their own, but they're being more secretive about it because they were, they're evil. They're being clandestine. They can't face, they couldn't do things rightfully, and so they had to do things illegally. And anyways, it was only after months of research that he introduced his concerns in the newsletter in October 2019. The usual tools of data analytics in Poland would not be sufficient in a situation where the president himself was trying to disrupt the election. He wrote, "Most of our plan takes us through the election day," he noted, "but we're not prepared for the two most likely outcomes: Trump losing and refusing to concede, and Trump winning the Electoral College despite losing the popular vote. By corrupting the voting process in key states, we desperately need to systematically red team this election so that we can anticipate and plan for the worst we know will be coming our way." Like I said, I understand this strategy, to the point. And I'm actually like impressed. Like I'm actually like kind of proud of this to a point. It's like, man, this motherfucker, he knows what the fuck is up. I wonder what, he definitely he'd be an interesting man to talk to. I would say that. I would love to talk to this fucker. Anyways, it turned out that fucker wasn't the only one thinking in these terms. He began to hear from others eager to join forces. The Fight Back Table. Notice that's a title, right? The Fight Back Table. That's a title. FBT. They're capitalized. A coalition of resistance. Resistance in quotations. Organizations had begun a scenario planning around the potential for a contested election, gathering liberal activists at the local and national level into what they've called a Democracy Defense Coalition, the Democratic Attack Force. Voting rights and civil rights organizations were raising alarms. A group of former elected officials was researching emergency powers they feared Trump might exploit. Attack Democracy was assembling a bipartisan election crisis task force, quick reaction force, QRF. It turned out that once he said it out loud, people agreed, fucker said. It says, and it started building momentum. So basically, what we were doing out in the open, they decided to do it behind closed doors. And being that it was clandestine, like, people do a lot more behind closed doors. They all do a lot more. But this is manipulation. This is, hey, they didn't create the crimes. They just induced fear into people, and that fear caused people to do what did they say they did, and they chose to vote out of fear because small businesses, were being attacked. I mean, people's livelihoods were, neighborhoods are being destroyed, and people just didn't want that. So basically, they threatened to arouse a crowd if they didn't get their way. Like, that's what happens. And the thing is that that's why the insurrection was so important, or is so important, because there's evidence of people changing into MAGA clothes. And with that, like the whole insurrection thing, it was like we put it out there, like we the people, not Trump supporters or whatever else. It's just we the people who believe that things weren't right, decide to, hey, we're gonna go protest here, and yeah, and that's the thing is like there's a lot of followers, especially because this narcissistic nation that we live in. I mean, that's why I have people taking selfies, at Pelosi's desk, and it was yeah, it's easy to those lunatic fringe. I'm so sorry. This is heavy. What am I? Damn. He spent months pondering scenarios and talking to experts. It was hard to find liberals who saw Trump as a dangerous dictator. Oh, it wasn't hard to find liberals who saw Trump as a dangerous dictator, Fucker said, but was careful to steer clear of hysteria. What he wanted to know was not how American democracy was dying, but how it might be kept alive. The chief difference between the U.S. and countries that lost their grip on democracy, he concluded, was that America's decentralized election system couldn't be rigged in one fell swoop. That presented an opportunity to shore up. The chief difference between the U.S. and countries that lost their grip on democracy, he concluded, was that America's decentralized election system couldn't be rigged in one fell swoop. That presented an opportunity to shore up. Because the election process, so that's the damn thing, is Trump wasn't trying to rig the election. Like, he was trying to rig the election to make it fair, and but apparently there's so many loopholes in it. The alliance on March 5th or 3rd, Fucker drafted a 3-page confidential memo titled "Threats to the 2020 Elections." Trump has made it clear that this will not be a fair election and that he will reject anything but his own re-election as fake and rigged, he wrote. On November 3rd, should the media report otherwise, he will use the right-wing information system to establish his narrative and incite his supporters to protest. Oh, so I guess that's why taking down Parler and, attacking anyone on 4chan and stuff, like as white supremacists, like that's the thing is they created a boogeyman and the white man, when it's, actually the internet is, we're a rainbow of people, and there's a lot of supporters of Trump, and, the memo laid out 4 categories of challenges: attacks on voters, attacks on election administrations, attacks on Trump's political opponents, and efforts to reverse the results of the election. I like how that's in quotes, because they didn't keep that in there, like, because that's supposed to be like they're telling us what they're doing, but they left the quotes up because that's in the context, and that context is already framed. There's little quotation marks. That's what I'm saying is understand spellcasting. All right? Understand magic. The COVID-19 erupted at the height of the primary election season. Normal methods of voting were no longer safe for voters or the mostly elderly volunteers who normally staff polling places. But political disagreements intensified by Trump's crusade against mail voting prevented some states from making it easier to vote for absentee and for jurisdiction to count those in a timely manner. Chaos ensued. Ohio shut down in-person voting for its primary, leading to a minuscule turnout. A poll worker shortage in Milwaukee, where Wisconsin's heavily Democratic black population is concentrated, left just 5 open polling places, down from 182. And New York voter counting took more than a month. And yeah, I mean, let me just continue, so I'm getting held up here. But yeah, there's suddenly the potential for a November meltdown was obvious. In his apartment in D.C. suburbs, Fucker began working on his laptop in his kitchen, holding back-to-back Zoom meetings for hours with his network of contacts across the progressive universe, the labor movement, the institutional left, Planned Parenthood, Greenpeace, resistant groups like Indivisible and Move On, progressive data geeks and strategists, representatives of donors and foundations, state-level grassroots organizers, racial justice activists, and others. And you see, like, all of you fucking narcissists out there that were, being these little influencers. Puppets. In April, Fucker began hosting a weekly 2.5 hour Zoom. It was structured around a series of rapid fire 5-minute presentations on everything from which ads were working to messaging to legal strategy. A series of rapid fire 5-minute presentations on everything from which ads were working to messaging to legal strategy. The invitations only gatherings soon attracted hundreds, creating a rare shared base of knowledge for the fractish progressive movement. So they had their own platform, and they couldn't be deplatformed because they were doing things, and they were conspiring. This is conspiracy. But we're conspiracy theorists, right? We're conspiracy theorists. When they're telling us they're conspiracy. Hundreds. At risk of talking trash about the left, there's not a lot of good of information sharing. Says in it, a close fucker friend whose poll tested messaging guidance shaped the group's approach. There's a lot not invented here syndrome, where people won't consider a good idea if they didn't come up with it. That's narcissism. And the meetings became the galactic center for the constellation. So we're talking about freaking some astrology. See, this is the damn thing is, they start talking about the universe, now galactic and constellations. Talking about bringing the stars into things. Like Lady Gaga. Freaking that Baldwin fucker. The meetings became the galactic center for a constellation of operatives across the left who shared overlapping goals, but didn't usually work in concert. The group had no name, no leaders, and no hierarchy, but it kept the disparate actors in sync. Actors. Keyword. See? Okay, so Hollywood is what just one is made of. And the thing is, an actor or actress creates the illusion of a scene with the use of the magic of the stage and the spellings of a script. Actors and actresses are spellcasters. They read spellings. Pod played a critical behind-the-scenes role in keeping different pieces of the movement, infrastructure, and communication aligned. It says Maurice Mitchell, National Director of the Working Families Party. So basically, hey, we're Nazis. You have the litigation space, the organization space, the political people just focused on the W, and their strategies aren't always aligned. He allowed this ecosystem to work together. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Protecting the election will require an effort of protecting the election would require an effort of unprecedented scale. As 2020 progressed, it stretched to Congress, Silicon Valley, and the nation's state houses, and drew energy from the summer's racial justice protests, many of whose leaders were a key part of liberal alliance, and eventually reached across the aisle into the world of Trump-skeptical Republicans, appalled by his attacks on democracy. Securing the vote. The first task was overhauling America's bulky election infrastructure in the middle of a pandemic. For the thousands of local, mostly nonpartisan officials who administer elections, the most urgent need was money. They need protective equipment like masks, gloves, and hand sanitizer. They needed to pay for postcards, letting people know they could vote absentee, or in some states, to mail ballots to every voter. They need additional staff and scanners to process ballots. So, wow. In March, activists appealed to Congress to steer COVID relief money to election administration. Led by a leadership conference on the civil and human rights, more than 150 organizations signed a letter to every member of Congress seeking $2 billion in election funding. It was somewhat successful. The CARES Act, passed later that month, contained $400 million in grants to the state election administrators. Really? But the next tranche of relief funding, whatever the fuck tranche of relief funding, didn't add to that number. It wasn't going to be enough. Private philanthropy stepped into the breach. See, I'm telling you, man, like, call me a spooky cookie. I don't give a fuck. Witchcraft, man. Witchcraft. I'm telling you. Alright? Like, freaking, this is exactly what the fuck, this is how it fucking works. They're telling us. They're giving us a freaking inside look of their spell book. You understand? They're telling us things. You gotta read between the fucking lines. It's not just freaking, oh yeah. But, because I actually understand. I don't understand everything in this, but the thing is, I have a concept. I have an understanding of what the fuck this is talking about, and with the help of others, we can actually expose them for who fuck they are. But I'm telling you, this is like, this is what I would have done. If I really want to get something done, so the leader of me is like, man, I'm like taking fucking notes, to be honest with you. He's like, okay. But the thing is, see, like, they use their power inappropriately. So, private philanthropy stepped into the breach. An assortment of foundations contributed tens of millions in election administration funding. The Chan Zuckerberg Initiative chipped in $300 million. It was a failure at the federal level that 2,500 election officials were forced to apply for philanthropic grants to fill their needs. He also just got really fucking sick, says Amber McReynolds, a former Denver election official who heads the nonpartisan National Vote at Home Institute. Well, your job's really fucking important. Fucking all those fucking titles. It's like, hey, what's my job? I'm a private. So. Anyways, McReynolds, I'm actually a specialist, but we're always private to somebody who. McReynolds' 2-year-old organization became a clearinghouse for a nation struggling to adapt. The Institute gave secretaries of state from both parties technical advice on everything from which vendors to use to how to locate and drop boxes. Locate drop boxes. And you see, like, how data is being used against us. All this free shit, and oh wow, I'm getting all these followers. And well, I gotta keep on catering to my audience. And so I'm just gonna, and then before I know it, I'm falling under that spell. Like, even though I don't believe it, like, well, I don't want to lose my life or whatever else. I'm getting all this revenue and these views, and I'm becoming like so popular that, you know what? Yeah, fuck Trump. Even though this is going on, fuck that, Um, See, this is why I'm against influencers. Um, there's a scourge in them, and that's why, like, shit, I could fucking sell out, but I don't want to. I'd much rather be fucking. I mean, you see my channel. Oh, excuse me. Hope you do. Hold on a second. But yeah, I don't. I was actually talking to someone the other day about my about influencers and stuff, and it's like, yeah, I can't say that I wouldn't sell out. Like, I finally broke down and was like, but it would have to be something I really believe in. Like, it's something I already use or something like that. And, I'm not just going to, someone's not going to just throw me money and be like, yeah, I'll fucking, whore this out for you. No, that's not who I am. Like, I don't want to get followers, subscribers. I mean, I'm after subscribers. I mean, I'm after followers, I guess. Followers, a subscriber, but I'm just. I want to have something to say. I'm using this as a platform. That's my soapbox. People like what I have to say. Then hell yeah, and you know what? Freaking if I got to that point where start making money on this shit, then I'll put it to this way: it would definitely be better used than some of these other channels. But I digress. The Institute gave both parties distributed. Reynolds said local officials are the most trusted source. Okay, so here, let me just read that. I'm sorry for running my mouth. This is just fucking. This is intense. McReynolds' 2-year-old organization began a clearinghouse for a nation struggling to adapt. This too gave secretaries of state, both parties, technical advice on everything from which vendors to use to how to locate drop boxes. Local officials are the most trusted sources of election information, but few can afford a press secretary. So the Institute distributed communication toolkits. In a presentation, Fucker's group, McReynolds detailed the importance of absentee ballots for shortening lines at polling places and preventing an election crisis. An election crisis on their behalf, not ours. The Institute helped 37 states and D.C. bolster mail voting, but it wouldn't be worth much if people didn't take advantage. Part of the challenge was logistical. Each state has different rules for when and how ballots should be requested and returned. The Voter Participation Center, which in a normal year would have deployed canvassers door to door to get out the vote, instead conducted focus groups in April and May to find out what people would get to mail and vote. To find out what would get people to mail and vote. In August and September, it sent ballot applications to 15 million people in key states, 4.6 million of whom returned them. So that's almost a third. That's almost a third. And the thing is, with that number, I mean, because you're talking about customer acquisition cost. And so I think their goal was probably, like about 4 million. I mean, well, I shouldn't say, pardon me. Their goal, like they only got a third, so they were able to get I think they expected to get 18 to 20%. Like that was what they were bargaining on. Like that's before they would take a loss. Maybe like 25% is where they would break even at. So, in mail-ins and digital ads, the group urged people not to wait for Election Day. All the work we have done for 17 years was built for this moment of bringing democracy to people's doorsteps, says 17 years? That's 2003. This goes all the way back to fucking Bush. So Obama's part of this. Oh, fuck. The effort had to overcome heightened skepticism in some communities. Many black voters prefer to exercise their franchise in person or didn't trust in mail. National civil rights groups worked with local organizations to get the word out that this was the best way to ensure one's vote was counted. In Philadelphia, for example, advocates distributed voting safety kits containing masks, hand sanitizer, and informational brochures. We had to get the message out. That is that this is safe, reliable, and you can trust it. And see, that's that's bribing. That's bribery. That's manipulation. Oh, yeah. Well, here, because we care about you so much. It's, like, when I'm selling a toothbrush, like, how am I going to sell? You're going to, like, your teeth are going to feel like the cleanest that they've ever felt in your entire life, because this toothbrush will give you the confidence to, feel like you don't have stinky breath. You can talk to that girl across the way because you know what? Your teeth are clean. It's about the emotions behind it. It's not about the actual service of the product. It's about the feelings of it. When you drink this soft drink, you're going to feel so refreshed, and it's going to bring you back because food's memories, right? And it's like, oh, I remember that time when I was a kid and the best thing was a nice cold freaking cola, on a hot summer day. And it just brings you back. You're selling emotions. What do polar bears have to do with fucking Christmas? Nothing. Besides the fact they're from the North Pole. They only mean something because of fucking Coca-Cola. Just like Santa's suit is Coca-Cola red. Anyways, we had to get the message out of this. At the same time, Democratic lawyers battled a historic tide of pre-election litigation. The pandemic can testify the party's usual tangling in the courts, but the lawyers noticed something else as well. The litigation brought by the Trump campaign of a piece with a broader campaign to sow doubt about mail-in voting was making novel claims and using theories no court has ever accepted, says Wendy Weiser, a voting rights expert at the Brennan Center for Justice at NYU. They read more like lawsuits designed to send a message rather than achieve legal outcome. In the end, nearly half of the electorate cast ballots by mail in 2020, practically a revolution in how people vote. About a quarter voted early in person. Only a quarter of voters cast their ballots the traditional way, in person, on Election Day. Oh my goodness. Alright, this video is getting to be 50 minutes. I'm going to make a new one. And, or I'm going to start here. So, this is going to be part 2. Because I'm only about halfway done. And, no, I'm sorry. Like, trying to do, like, a live reaction to this and stuff. And, this is fucking, I'm telling you, this is fucking magic right here. This really fucking is. This is total fucking magic. Spellcasting, alright, people? Take care, be safe, be kind, stay strong, and get ready for part 2.